I'm here with is it Tisdale
This,
or okay, yeah, I'm here with Marcus Tisdale. The reason I asked Marcus here, he's got it's hard times, right? I got
hard, hard problems.
hard problem. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a Dusty Rhodes brain fart, man. That's that old Southern wrestling just kind of popped in there. But no, Marcus, I love his articles because he's every one of them has is just broken down with facts and action points, things you can do. And one of the things he's really passionate about that I'm passionate about is workers' rights. Part of my background is I've been a working man in aviation and in the military, and I've led working folks in operations management. And
Yeah.
so a lot like I like what you do. What I like is you touch on a lot of things that I've touched on, but you actually go further. So tell me, like what about you? What kind of got you passionate about workers' rights?
Yeah. Yeah. So my background is working class. For
Mm.
the vast majority of my life, especially my adult life, I had to work, and I've worked in a variety of different, uh, you know, uh, positions and environments. I've worked in factories. I've worked in warehouses. I worked in different places, and I've worked as sales, customer service. I've done so many different jobs,
Yeah.
and so uh, before I went to before I went to Georgetown, uh, and before I embarked on my college career, um, you know, I had the experience of a working class person.
Yeah.
Um, and so a lot of my content speaks to that, uh,
Mm.
in the sense that a lot of content creators, they don't necessarily um, I feel like there isn't enough uh, support as far as dealing with working class issues. Uh,
Right.
so that's primarily my focus. Uh,
Mhm.
and I think that we've allowed the Republicans to take the floor on a lot of these issues when really it should be I feel like it should be always been a traditional issue centered around left wing politics. So,
Yeah, I mean, historically, you're absolutely right. Because, well, the money class and the like politicians, which that's where that they get their funding from traditionally, because most working people, you're worried about stretching a dollar. You don't have enough money to give to a politician. Um, so like it would you tend to find representatives for working class. I think from the working class for folks like us, right? Because my dad was the same kind of background where he grew up poor in Mississippi, and so I same kind of way where I was taught to work, and I kind of worked and then went to college off and on between working. And I think a lot of that where we get tripped up is we talk about the working class, the middle class, like there's this nebulous kind of concept out there, right? And but when you get into cultural issues, you kind of focus more because identity politics is both used for good and bad in that. Like you talk about black folks or white working white or this or that. There's always something else to put on as identifier.
Right.
And I think sometimes, and again, I don't want to discount that because there are other systemic issues everybody deals with. But I think that's a way. Like I think for folks, there it's easily to grasp onto that. Whereas with the working class, it's not so much. Especially people don't want to be seen as that. It's almost like a pejorative. People want to be like, well, I'm middle class. It's like, well, no, man. Like you're part of the working class. I mean, actually, salaried employees are becoming part of the working class now.
Well,
You know,
that's a great point that you made. You know, I think that really there's maybe really only two classes.
yeah,
Uh, you're either the capital class, you basically own capital, and you don't have to work,
yeah,
or you're working class, and that includes people who are highly educated, highly skilled. They're just high paid people who are working class. So like doctors, lawyers, you know, uh, they're all working class. If you work for a living and you punch in and punch out at the end of the day, you're working class.
yep. And and it's funny because you know that like and unions kind of got caught in this trap where they had skilled and unskilled labor, right? And we had this and I remember I used to I the designation I had is like you get a higher salary job, right? Or you get more pay for this and that. And the thing is like I think I kind of base it off of an old Chris Rock joke, right? Where it's like he said Shaq is rich, but the guy who signs his check is wealthy. Because wealth is something you can pay. And so it's more to your point where it's this notion of, if you're benefiting off the labor of somebody else, right? That's you're part of the capital of the money class. If you're working for a living, like if you're getting you might get paid a high salary, but chances are the people employing you or paying you that salary are making three, four, five, six times what they're paying you. Because if they were, if they were paying you more money than they're making, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, right.
It's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
So unless you're a partner and you're making a percentage, it don't matter how much you're making salary wise, you're part of the working class. Like you're on the outside. And I think that's some like I kind of like that. I'm more partial to that designation, because it really I think it is kind of coming down to that,
mhm.
because the middle class is getting like they're getting squeezed into the working class, and
Yeah,
it's setting up to where it is, uh, you know, pretty much us. It's everybody. It's us and them, you know.
yeah.
So
That's that's basically my contention. Is that there's been there's been a de like I don't know the word, the detangling.
yeah, well, yeah, decoupling, like yeah, well, it's because I think it's because there's no ladder anymore, man. It used to be well, and you know they used to sell it by I think by people. Well, they go back. It's like, well, there was the good old days and this and that. It's like, yeah, if you were a white male, it was the good old days. But if you were anybody else, if you're a woman, you're a person of color, like not really. And then that started to open up, and so then you started to have the split. But eventually, it just and I think a big part of the problem is because anytime we start talking about like the words leftist or you even talk about Karl Marx or and look, I'm not advocating for Marxism, I'm not advocating for communism, anything like that. But I studied Marx in college. I studied his history. I studied, and when he talks about economic motives, that's the funny thing is we talk about it like when you see news commentators talking about economic means, right? And this is for the audience. This is for the audience. Like, so when you see like, hey, like when they start talking about economic drivers or economic things, that's from Marx. People, funny enough, never used to talk about it that way. That
Yeah,
came after Karl Marx. That was where the way people talked about it was either God's plan or it was manifest destiny or it was the great men moved history. We still have that with the founding fathers, right? The founding fathers myth, where it's like they were these superhuman wise men that just created this magnificent government for all of us. And look, they did do good things, and they were products of the Enlightenment. But you know, the wisest thing they gave us was they realized they didn't know everything,
right.
which seems to not be the case now, right? So I think one of the struggles is I think is twofold. People don't want to be associated with working class, and they don't want to use this language because I like, and that's why I'm careful not to use this sort of like the Marxist language, is because really to me, I'm very much of the American pragmatist tradition where it's like I just want to fix it.
Yeah.
Here's the problem. Here's why it's happening. Let's fix it. So what a lot of this. So what are you like um you get you do you a lot of your stuff you're right, you're giving prescriptions like and I get this asked a lot where people are saying, hey, what can I do, what can I do, what are some of the ways that you think we could be given the environment we're in, what we could be doing right now, that maybe we're not like we're maybe not doing, you know
Some of the
um
doing that we're not currently mostly doing. Um, that's a good question. Uh, I think that's a contextual question though.
sure.
It's like in what way? Like,
I think I think and maybe I'm asking this question right because I think that there's a so like I think that that like I think what this is happening now has been deep seated for years, right? This is the chickens kind of coming home to roost thing. I don't think that there's a quick fix to this. I think there's like fires that we need to put out, like we gotta like him and Trump, right? But then once we deal with Trump and sort of defang MAGA, what then? Because if we point it all at him and say, well, he's the problem, right? And then we keep carrying on the way we are, it's just gonna continue. So like part of this is like you have to almost be of two minds of it. It's like what here's the fire we have to put out right now, but then also what do we need to be doing to lay the groundwork to have systemic shifts? You know, like one thing is absolutely is voting rights across the board. So we can and the other thing is I think uh is organizing on a local level. You know,
I think
yeah,
that I think you're right. Systemic is the key word. Uh,
yeah.
I think that there are a few things that kind of block um, sort of a broad pro working class reforms. Uh, One of those things is the composition of the Supreme Court.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
that's the one thing that has been devastating to on a lot of fronts. You um, we're seeing now the consequences of a series of Supreme Court decisions. Um, some of the biggest ones were Citizens United, Trump,
Oh man, yeah.
Trump United States. That was a big one where he basically was given unlimited, uh, you know, unlimited, almost unlimited immunity. Like it's hard to define what he can and can't do based on the basis of that court decision.
They try to do this little slick thing where they said it's official and unofficial acts, right? And then they said, oh well, the Supreme Court defines. what an unofficial official act is. And it's like, okay, but if he decides to disband you,
Yeah.
is that are you going to declare it an unofficial act from prison? You know, like
Yeah.
it's kind of like you don't want to open that door. And for those folks who don't know what Marcus just referenced, Citizens United, which I think was, I want to say 2010.
2010. I think
Yeah,
I
basically what it declared was corporations are people, and they can make political donations to PACs, political action committees, as if they were people, which is basically unlimited. That's why we're awash now in our politics with dirty money. That's what it was. You in one of your pieces, you proposed an amendment to the Constitution to basically ban um, political contributions. That's like wow. I like, and I never thought about that, but I said, yeah, I love that. Like, let's do that. Yeah, let's get the money out of politics.
yeah. I
Um,
I think that politics should be publicly funded. Straight
yeah,
up, but purposely
absolutely.
funded.
I do too. I think, and a lot of folks don't realize is a lot of other nations do it that way. Um, and it eliminate. We kind of had a half in, half out thing with that, but it didn't really work. And then Citizens United after President Obama got elected, it just killed it. And now we've opened the floodgates, and here we are. But yeah, no, but I think you're right. I think rather than a law, it's going to take a constitutional amendment to get it done, and that's the kind of thing I'm thinking like that kind of organization that we're going to need. Because getting a constitutional amendment is like it's tough. It can be done, but we've got to figure out a way to get the money out of politics.
I think that the 2026 elections will be pivotal. Pivotal. We all know that.
Yeah,
And I think that from you know, I think that we need the equivalent of the Project 2025 uh, for the next. If there's an incoming, if we do have elections in 2028, which is looking like we might not have
it's up in the air at this point, man. You know,
that's a coin toss. But
right? You know, um,
if we do have elections, we should have the incoming Democratic uh, administration should have a really strong game plan for implementing some serious reforms. Uh,
yeah,
I think that I think the one silver lining about this situation is that we could come back uh, come back from this a much stronger democracy. Like we were kind of we were actually called a flawed democracy by
yeah,
uh, yeah, I forget the name of the organization. It was an organization that ranks democracies and the type of democracy you're in, and it
yeah.
ranks flawed democracy. So I think that we will actually come back a really strong democracy from this, you know, low point, right? If we're able to come out of this and enact some of the reforms that we need.
I think you're right. Because from being an organizer for the Democratic Party, and I got politically active in 2003. I busted my knees in a training accident in the Marine Reserve, so I was pretty much out of it. The Iraq War kicked off, and my unit got activated in '06, and they went into Kirkuk and over in Iraq, and I had friends come back. So I was already protesting the war, but part of it was, I saw kind of what was happening at that time. And before that, I wasn't really politically active. I was kind of this mishmash of different ideas that, my parents had put into me, or, like just kind of glommed on. for where I lived, um and I think the hard thing is Democrats at times try to appeal to everybody, you know, and they don't. It's interesting because they don't grab on to things that have broad appeal because like we're trying they try to straddle the fence with, well, we're good for the billionaires and we're good for the money people. But the problem is the billionaires are definitely pushing everybody else out. The money classes want everybody else over there, and then they're over here. And so you've got to this place where you can't be both. And I think that's why Bernie and AOC are seeing such massive rallies, you know, is because they're saying, no, we're firmly over here. And I think for the Democrats, in order to say that they're this big party, because I've referred to the Democrats as this, we're not a big tent party. We're a bunch of little tents in a big field, you know? And, everybody's kind of got their own like their own issue. And the people's like, well, they shouldn't have that. It's like, yeah, but you've got to give them something to rally around. So, like, uh, Lawrence Winterman and Gen Xe said, oh, let's do a citizen's oath to the Constitution. I said, let's do it, man. He had a great idea. And the reason I backed it was, okay, beyond the president, beyond Constitution. That's what it means to be an American. We lose this, like being American means nothing, you know? And I think to your point, like economically, the Democrats need to pick a side and they need to definitively say with like a project 2026 or project 2028, say, this is what we're going to do for everyone who's not part of the top 0.01%. This is what we're going to do for people who want, because Prime Minister Carney in Canada is doing that right now. That's what he's running on right now, is building affordable homes. Not homes, just building affordable homes. And he's like, we're going to build with this. And the crazy thing is FDR did that. He did it in DC because he said we're going to need people to run the government. So let's build them some homes. So like so in a lot of places in Virginia and Maryland, those old brick homes that are like 3 bedrooms and they're set like a certain way. That's from FDR,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, why can't we do that?
Well, I think FDR would be called a communist today.
Yeah,
Uh,
he would. I
so
think he was back then too, but he definitely be Reagan would be called a communist today. You know, at this point, like it's like, oh yeah, well, that's the one judge that just ruled against that slapped down about Abrigo Garcia. Basically just taking there was a appellate judge. Um, I can't remember his name, but he was a Reagan appointee, like a hard line, like conservative, and he's just like, nope. this is this is a clear violation of the Constitution. Y'all should be ashamed of yourselves. It's like, okay, but I think that's where we're at. That's the commonality that we can find. And to your point, I think there is a silver lining. Yeah, go for it.
yeah, you know, I think that here's the interesting thing too is that you know Trump can't win without the working class vote and without trying to appeal to the working class in the ways that he has tried. He's trying to for example bring jobs to places like Ohio and uh, Pennsylvania and places that were basically part of the what's called the Rust Belt.
Yeah,
They got pretty much cleaned out during the neoliberal economic era since the late 1970s, 80s,
yeah,
and just like a slaughter for that area. Like it's just economically, it's been really bad. And I think that um, I think that acknowledging that we actually like I think that acknowledging that Trump actually is not a viable candidate in the sense that um, without without a core element of the working class appeal, he really can't literally just can't win elections. And I think that's a key thing that the Democrats need to hone on is that you know actually really appealing to the working class is how you win.
Yeah, yeah. The thing is, a buddy of mine, he used to organize. His wife worked on Capitol Hill back in the bomb era, and he has sort of a great like phrase. He says, any legislation you put forth has to be measurable and meaningful. If it's not measurable or meaningful, then it's a waste. And the big problem with that's why I get mad at Schumer, is because it's this kind of waffling where you want to be beholden to both sides. You want to be beholden to everybody, or you seek bipartisanship or compromise as a virtue in and of itself. And it's not about measurable and meaningful. It's about just, oh well, look, we did this thing. You know, it's like you saw it in California where it's like, hey, we got rid of plastic straws. That's going to help out the environment. And while it's true, the thing is like, okay, now you have cardboard straws, and that's icky and kind of whatever. But 80% of like pollution that's going to global warming is corporate. It's not from consumers and personal folks. So it's not measurable and meaningful. So it looks like it's just weak sauce. And so while and I think that's, to your point, what you got to have for these communities that have been devastated. I mean, you could go, like, people do this. You could, like, folks, you could go on YouTube and see, like, just type in Gary, Indiana, or like, and these people drive through these areas, and they're gone. Like, they're devastated economically. So that's why this Trump stuff does play in those areas, because now I think they've been bamboozled,
Yeah,
you know. I
and
don't think
yeah,
yeah.
I think that you know, there's I think that it's not so much. Maybe we shouldn't look at it as they've as that they've been bamboozled, but that uh, that he's able to successfully um frame the opposing party, that is he's able to successfully frame Democrats as the party that is trying to take things away from them. He's trying
Okay.
to take away like their guns, or he's trying to take away, um, he's trying to make their children trans, whatever, or you know,
Yeah.
it's like I think that there is a negative framing
Mm.
that they're able to like successfully frame the Democrats in a negative way,
I
and
would agree with that. Yeah.
so like it's not. I don't think it's so much that what they're offering. It's what the Democrats might take away from them. I think that's kind of the way that they're able to you know do
I
it.
I honestly think you're onto something, because I think that's where AOC and Bernie are successful. Because they take that same sort of negative framing
Yeah.
and flip it, right? So instead of like using trans kids as or trans athletes as the boogeyman or the guns or whatever, what they do is they go with the oligarchs. They go with the billionaire class. They go with the corporations and the offshoring and all these things that have hurt them. And because I think what we all and I've had to break myself of this habit. Some right wing person puts out something, right? It's obviously coming from their bubble, and it's just wrong headed or whatever. It's bigoted, whatever. And so your impulse is to attack that thing, right? It's like they put it out there and they say, well, trans people committing, being in high school sports, um, that's what's really hurting women. And right. So then our initial impulse is like, well, let me get the stats on how many are actually doing this, and I'm going to show you. And it's like, but that doesn't really work.
Oh,
That doesn't change minds, you know. And I think maybe it's to pivot and say, yeah, we can have a discussion about that some other time, but how about this trade deal to China, or how about jobs disappearing from your area because of this, this, and this? You know, maybe that's the way to go about it.
I think that's exactly the way to go about it. It's it's you have to frame them as the worst option. Uh,
Yeah,
Not just worse, but like catastrophically worse. Uh, because there's the problem is that they has framed the left and they've framed the Democrats as the catastrophic option.
yeah,
If, we're just so bad that, like, if we literally, Elon Musk said that civilization will end if
yeah. He does,
if
and
we
and they and the people believe him. You know, yeah, they believe him, and you know what? I think what it is when Republicans go out and they grandstand and they do this stuff, they back up their rhetoric with what how they posture, right? Democrats are evil. We're the spawn of Satan. All that other stuff somebody mentioned in the chat. And then they oppose, and we're like, this is ridiculous. But then on the flip side, when we do it, we say democracy's falling, democracy's in danger on the campaign trail. But then we get in the legislative process, like, well, we've reached a compromise with the people that are trying to bury democracy. You know, and so our and that's why again I I got so upset with Schumer and everybody else did, is like, look, man, if these people are trying to collapse democracy, then act like it.
yeah
Say no to everything. Just be a pain in the ass. Show that you're willing to fight, because your actions are not matching the rhetoric. And then if they don't, people don't trust you. And I think that's our biggest problem. That's changing a little bit, but that's something that we need to work on. We don't have that. I mean, like, that's the thing. We may be right on the facts sometimes, but we just don't have that we don't have the appearance of integrity.
Hmm.
And the liars do, and that's the problem, right? Yeah.
The appearance of integrity. That's a really interesting point. I and I don't. That
And I think it's just because our rhetoric's not matching up with our actions, whereas theirs is, even though they're lying. And that it comes from a boldness of it, right? If you say over and over, "Oh, the 2020 election was stolen," and you act like it was, eventually you're going to get a segment of people that believe you. You know, well, if it ain't true, why is he saying it? It's that kind of thing. Whereas, and that's the tough part when you're trying to give an honest take on the world, because you end up being nuanced. And you can nuance yourself right into seeming dishonest, right? It's one of the, that's why I say it's okay for Democrats to say, no, this is wrong, and take a definitive stance. No, it's wrong. It's like,
Yeah,
this is wrong, and just state it and be that position. It's like, no, we're going to fight for working folks.
I think the nuanced take works for educated voters.
Yes.
Doesn't work for less educated people, people's high school diplomas. You know, it doesn't work. It doesn't work for that segment of people. Uh,
No, I think you're right. You
but I,
know.
one of the reasons why Trump is able, his messaging is so simple. It's so you know black and white that they can latch on to that. And I think that you need different messaging for different. If you're speaking to different crowds, you need different messaging.
Yes. I,
Just like,
I
right, you're speaking to a different crowd. You're speaking to an educated crowd. People uh, that have master's degrees. Maybe you should change the way you speak, and then when you speak to people who work in
Yeah.
mines and things like that, speak to them in the way that makes sense to them.
Yeah. Oh,
And
I mean, every writer will tell you, like, you should do that. Um, I mean, I code switch all the time, depending on depending on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to working class folks, I'll code switch.
yeah,
If I'm like, when I'm in a corporate meeting, when I was in aviation and I'm talking to C-suite executives, I wouldn't come in. Well, I thank y'all for coming out to the meeting today. Like, I'd tone down the big country, and I'd be like, I appreciate everyone being here, and like, it was more matter of fact. I'd use some bigger words, but if I'm trying to talk to a crew chief, I'm not gonna, you know, well, like, your actions are going to lead to a deleterious impact on the company's body. Like, they're not gonna, they don't care about none of that, man. And so it's interesting. Like, there was a book titled "What's the Matter with Kansas?" It came out years and years ago, and the author's central thesis was like, why do people in Kansas keep voting against their own economic interests, seemingly? Um, even though poll after poll shows them to be, oh, we want this, we want that. And a lot of it comes down to, like, his analysis was Republicans just take definitive stances, and that feels more trustworthy. And that was it, you know. And no, you're good. Dude, it's okay. That's the great thing about Substack Live is, it's like we just roll with technical issues.
cool.
It's no, but yeah, no, I think it's something I think, funny enough, I think Obama was really good at that. Like, if you like, Obama was just good with connecting with everybody,
Yeah,
you know. Um, but you but yeah, I just, and Biden was good with that too. I think if Biden had been 15 years younger,
and that
he
and
would.
that's a great point. Biden won in 2020. I
Yeah,
would have won because he had a strong working class platform, and he created the Chips Act, which
yeah.
was phenomenal,
Hmm.
really great piece of legislation,
Hmm.
and you know his platform was really good. And I think that what ultimately did do him in was his late age. I think that uh, you know I think he would have won 2020 for you know if to he would have won in 2024 if he was, even slightly young, even just 5 years younger. He would probably.
Yeah, it's. I don't think it was senility. I know that gets thrown around. I think he was still sharp as ever.
Yeah,
Um, I think it was just, man, as you go past 80, you just slow down.
yeah,
And the sad part is, I'll take Biden at 80 over Trump at 42. You know, like he's just Biden, like, because even after the debate, if he gave a speech in front of NATO that a lot of people didn't see, but I mean, the guy's grasp on sort of world events, and I mean, it's just it was way more coherent than anything Trump has ever delivered, but that is not going to make a headline or the media.
hmm
And, unfortunately, that's the environment we live in now, and so it's trying to balance that out. I mean, even Bernie is like, I think he's as old as Trump and a little older, and he's had a heart attack, but heck, you wouldn't know it, because he's out there with AOC and he's doing it, you know and I just, so it sucked for Kamala because she got thrown in late,
hmm
you know
yeah.
and that's a hell of a thing to try to introduce yourself to the American public and create a campaign, what 3 months.
I think it was hard. It was what made it harder was the fact that you know uh, she was kind of in the background the for the entire time. Like, what, no one could really uh, relate
Yeah.
to her, and she was just just kind of there, right? Like, not even, she was like the vice president, but like no one knew who she was, right? And uh, I think that was, I think that if she had the same level of visibility as you know Biden did when he was president,
Hmm.
I mean vice president,
Yeah.
I think that she would have did a lot better. I don't know if she won because there's a lot of reasons why she didn't win, and I think that many of the reasons why she didn't win had nothing to do with her. It's I think it just had to do with just the where the American voting public was at in that moment, and they weren't in a place to elect, uh, you know, a black, half Indian woman, uh,
Yeah.
a
You can
woman,
say it, man. It's okay. Yeah.
just a woman, because
Yeah.
Hillary didn't win in 2016, and it was basically she got the same percentages of
Yeah.
particularly white women to vote for her, and that was really disappointing in 2016. So I think that um, there's just a certain level of, for lack of a better word, bigotry. Uh,
Yeah.
we got to be honest about that. I mean, there's that 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 made up for the one that was the 1.5% that you know I think made up for the 1.5% of voters that, or the margin of of voters that voted for Trump.
Well, and that's the tough thing is, like, I think you've got to present an argument. And to your point, you made a great point. It's like you said, that's where the voters were at that moment.
Yeah,
Um, and I think you've got to,
I think
you
I think it was a bigger problem that she was a woman than that, because
Oh
Obama was
yeah.
2008. So, and I think the being a woman was a bigger problem for some voters than her being a racial minority.
So here's the interesting thing, and it's going to be a little bit off color, right? When we were organizing, when I was organizing back in 2012, and they were going back to the first election, and there was a phone call from a pollster going into Southwest Virginia, near where I lived, right? They were calling into Republican districts, and they were kind of doing the sly thing of like, "Hey, sir, who are you going to vote for?" Blah blah blah. And they had the recording, and the guy says, they said, "Let save your breath, son. I'm voting for the N word." Like, but he didn't say the N word, right? He just straight out said it. And what it was just, and he said, "Yeah, the Bush Republicans killed the economy, so nope, I'm gonna give it to the Democrat this time."
Wow.
And so I think, and I say that to illustrate a larger point, is like to your point where you said it's where the electric was.
Hmm.
And so I think you've got to get where, like, you've got the bigotry, right? How do we, like, for certain folks, the economic pain has to rise higher than the bigotry, where they set the bigotry aside. Because when that economic pain falls, well, let me go back to the bigotry. Oh, I don't want to vote for the woman. But and that was the thing, is like, while it was bad, we're coming out of the pandemic, we were doing better,
Hmm.
but it wasn't enough. You know, so well, let me go back to Trump. But had Trump been reelected and we were kind of, it was bad, I think Kamala might have won. And I think that's why maybe Hillary lost too, is economically we had kind of finally crawled out of the Great Recession.
Right. Right.
And then now it's, oh well, all right, well, I don't want to vote for the woman, I'm going to vote for the man, because now, like, I'm culturally, I mean, but then the hard part is you don't want to say that with a blanket statement, because those counties got left behind.
Hmm.
And a lot of that wasn't due to Obama, or Democrats. It was Mitch McConnell not trying to give them, Obama, any kind of victory whatsoever. You know, and so I think that's the frustrating thing, is like, people naturally blame the president, but it wasn't Obama. He had 2 years. He got ACA done, and after that, it was Republicans not give him anything, no infrastructure, nothing. Mitch McConnell said he made it his mission to try to make Obama fail. You know, Mitch McConnell's one of the worst things that ever happened to us. Like, I can't. Oh my god. Now he's old and turtly, and he's like, well, we got to defend the Constitution. It's like, son, you had a chance to twice, two bites at impeachment,
Yeah.
twice, and you didn't do it. You
Yeah.
know.
Oh well, he's a brilliant strategist. I'll give him that.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
Brilliant.
like, oh yeah, he basically extended the life of this hardcore conservatism and metastasized it into the cancer we have now by all his judicial appointments and everything else he did. You know,
No.
that, yeah, it's horrible, but I mean, he did what he set out to do. Now he's just like, I didn't know this Frankenstein monster I'd create would be such a monster. It's like,
Yeah. That's the problem that the Supreme Court, I think, is having now, is that they've created a monster. I've never seen them uh, vote unanimously on any issue. I can't remember. Yeah, that
no.
in recent history has, has the Supreme Court voted 9-0 on anything. So that was really interesting, and I think that and I think actually before that, Chief Justice Roberts uh, actually called Trump out by name.
Yeah, he did.
That you're not supposed to uh,
Yeah, he
say
was trashing a judge, I think it was, is what he called him out for.
you're not supposed to say that judges should be impeached because you disagree with them. You know,
Right.
it was really interesting. And I think that on some level there's a certain level of anxiety uh,
Yeah.
amongst the Supreme Court. Maybe I think they're starting to see, wow, this could be a problem, uh, and I think they're starting to finally get on the side of the Constitution and not on the side of partisan politics.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how this potential birthright citizenship case is going to shake out. Um, I mean, the language in the 14th Amendment is pretty crystal clear. Um, I'm still not confident on Alito and Thomas. I feel like they're going to do some kind of mental gymnastics to say, well, the 14th Amendment really means this. It's like, oh, and they'll make up precedent or something. Like I think they're. I'm like 30%. It's a 9-0, 70% like 6-3. You know, which still is like, dear God,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
It should be just 9-0. This should be just. They shouldn't even take it up. You know.
Well, let me put it this way: imagine if they were to retire today and Trump had to reappoint those positions. Do you
Oh
think
God.
people that he reappointed to the Supreme Court would be worse?
Oh yeah. Oh God. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like I mean, Thomas would be tough, but I mean, we'd probably get like Justice Eileen Cannon and then Justice Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know, like we it's just we get something like, or he would do a, I'm doing a giveaway. If you've always wanted to be a Supreme Court justice, go ahead and like if you buy my special NFT token, you're already put in the drawing to be Supreme Court. Like that. It would be that. You know,
yeah.
like
I think that if he were to do it, if they those two judges were to resign or to retire today, um, whatever he put in place to replace them would be worse. Actually, maybe far worse than because he's not the. This is not the same Trump. With
no.
this is a different Trump. I think this Trump is like if like Trump, he's on his like revenge arc, right?
Yes.
This guy is he's not the same person in 2016, and so I think that uh, yeah, I think that keeping things the way they are is actually the ideal situation, believe it or not.
You're right. I'm laughing because it's like that's that's it. Because like cognitively, he's absolutely declined both from age and God knows what he's done to his mind from whatever happened in COVID or whatever, or whatever. Maybe the brain worm from RFK jumped over there and started chomping in. Um, and he doesn't have anybody around him that's kind of the guardrails anymore. He's had 4 years of living in this malignant narcissistic delusion, and everybody's reinforced it.
Yeah,
So he's just now like, okay, well, we're just gonna, and it's starting to, because his this stuff that he's doing with Project 2025 is starting to have effects outside of the US. People that aren't the US, like Canada, China, EU, are going, no. Yeah, and so he's in a place where it's like, oh, I can't. So he ain't gonna admit it. He's just gonna throw people under the bus, or he's gonna try to wag the dog or get out of it somehow. But yeah, if the Supreme Court, if oh God, if he gets an appointment, oh, that's gonna be bad.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
gonna.
Amy Coney Barrett, we kind of got a little bit lucky because apparently she has some brains in her head, so she's not going to always go along with the crazy. She's going to be like Kennedy, where it's like, well, sometimes I'll go with the crazy, but not all the time. It's like, okay, you
Yeah,
know,
Amy Coney Barrett is she's kind of like the tiebreaker at this point. It can go either way with her,
yep,
and I think that's a good thing. Um, in the sense that it makes the court kind of almost like a have the same dynamic of a swing state, right? Like if the issue goes too far, too crazy, then we could see the thing. We could see the court shift, court opinion shift in the opposite direction. So, um, just like what we saw with, you know, the Abrego Garcia case. Uh, yeah, I think that I think that uh, speaking earlier to your point about what we can do, in terms of like what we can do now to affect change and to some practical things that we can do. I think that uh, the biggest thing that we can do is just to continue be to be loud
yeah,
and, and to publicly voice our disagreement with this situation. I think that Trump kind of thrives off of a sense that you know everyone agrees with. He thinks that he has some sort of mandate. I think that's kind of what's empowered him to some
yes,
extent, and we need to take away that perception. We need to take away that we shouldn't give him any or anyone else any ideas as to or any illusions as to Trump having a mandate. And I think that also we should make a clear roadmap for any incoming Democratic. I'm actually working on one myself. Just like basically the equivalent of a Project 2025. I'm going to call it Project 2026.
yeah,
And basically, the Democrats get in there and they will reverse a lot of this stuff. But more importantly, I think that they should make some really deep reforms and changes. Uh, uh,
one one place you might want to look is like what if Carney wins. Sorry, my dog's going nuts. um, Canada's housing plan, where they want to build 500,000 affordable housing units, um, and is great. And they planned it out to where it's like they want it to be affordable. They want it to have impact. Um, and the other thing too is if you guys can pressure your local leaders, right, your local Democrats, because they do send that up the chain, right? That's why these town halls are starting to have an effect. Is it does go up the chain and it says, "Hey, man, people are mad. And this is what they're saying," and so they will listen to that eventually. We're starting to see the judiciary push back really hard because they understand, like they're starting to understand the existential threat of like, if you let Trump ride roughshod over due process, like that's it for you as a co-equal branch. You're done. And so now it's these legislators that are going to, you're going to have to face the electorate at least in 2026. So you mess around. Yeah. So definitely go to your local meetings if you can. Like Marcus said, just be loud, pitch a
Yeah,
fit, just pitch a, whether publicly or on social media. Just keep pitching a fit.
yeah, be loud. Yeah, absolutely. It's. I mean, it is. It absolutely is having an effect.
Yeah.
Trump is is not. He's not as committed as people think he is. You know,
No, he's lazy.
no, no. He's. I think that he will back down just like any bully does if you stand up to him. And I think that you know that's what collectively the American people need to do is we just need to stay loud and keep the noise and keep getting in their face
Yep.
town meetings and letting them know what we think. And I think that that will slowly make them reconsider uh,
100%.
the situation. So we just got to keep it up. Yeah.
I gotta jump, but Marcus, I appreciate you being on with me, man. And like, and for all y'all, it's hard problems, and I'm looking forward to. I'm excited. I want to see the 2026 project because, like I said, go to Marcus's page, y'all. Like all his articles, just chock full of great stuff. Like where we should go with the Democratic Party, like things we should be fighting for. You get that, even if you get just part of it done, let me know, man, and I'll share it because like you write good stuff, dude. And I absolutely appreciate you being here.
For having me on, man. I'm glad to come back on anytime.
Absolutely, dude. Like we'll do it. You know. All right, yo, folks. You have a good Friday. I'll catch y'all later.